Hello, everybody. Hello. It feels very early in the morning for me, even though it's the usual time that I start my broadcast. I just feel like a little sleepy this morning, a little like slow to get going, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited, even though maybe I sound a little subdued this morning. I'm excited. We got a long day of cool RPG stuff ahead of us. We're going to spend, I guessed, probably about 2 hours, but design is a fickle creature. And so we may well spend less time than that, or we might run out of time, but we're going to spend a couple of hours digging around in the new thing I'm working on for Verona. Now this is technically a follow-up or like a second stream. We did this a week ago, maybe a little longer. We did a stream where we sat down and started building refining the goals system that I'm working on for the Verona faction turn, and also designing basically like an influence meter so we could tell how much cultural influence the various factions have. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, okay, so this is the second stream of a 2-part design thing attached to a game I've never heard of, and you're describing things that seem totally alien to me, well, you're about 19 months behind, which is okay. Don't run screaming. But let me try to lay it out for you. So the game that we're playing together, me and the patrons of patreon.com/rollplay. The game that we are playing together is a boosted version of something like a diplomacy. It's like a play-by-mail diplomacy game, and there are, 15 factions right now, and each faction is made up of a group of players, and they work together to decide what actions to take every month, and they submit them to me at the beginning of a period of 4 days at the end of the month, and then I confirm those orders. I make sure all the rules are adhered to correctly. I check what everybody else is doing. I get all set up, and then we perform the orders on stream once a month. And it helps me as a game master of the show that is attached to that game, the other Verona game. It helps me have a world that is constantly moving, and there are things going on, and stuff is always happening in the background. So it's been an interesting experiment. Yeah. It's under patreon.com/rollplay. RollPlay. And yeah, and it's been an interesting game because it's already, like, from the get-go, it's a beta, right? It's a version of a game never intended to be played the way we were playing it. We started by hacking the game by increasing the number of players from 1 to 15. And then by giving the responsibility to control those players to groups of people. So basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to expand on the core stuff that we've been working on for the last year and a half, right? So what I want to do is go back over kind of what we've worked on so far, right? It's a nice way to get back into it, kind of reestablish what I'm doing, the design goals, anything that we've changed so far, and then kind of figure out where we can expand from there. There are a few questions I still need to answer for this design. We've been able to generate a system that creates a number. We have an integer that represents the faction's, what I'm calling influence right now. But what I want is to better understand what we can use that number for, because it's a bit like, well, we'll talk about it. Let's review what we've got so far. Yeah, right. Technically it's a float, but sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not a mathematician. I will leave that up to the more skilled among us. But let's take a look. I apologize for how small I'm sure this font is. To be able to fit everything on the screen at once, I need it to be a little bit tiny. Don't worry about this. This PDF is just the rules of Stars Without Number. You can get your own copy of that on DriveThruRPG. And then over on this side, hopefully at a reasonably readable size, are my notes for the game itself. So let's dig into it. I sound a little stuffed up, don't I? I wonder if I'm getting a cold. Better not be. Universe. All right. So the goal here is to take what the faction turn already does and expand on that. Give us more options for characters, which is to say factions within the game, to interact with each other and to compete and to basically like do battle. And right now, the core vector of faction interaction is the use of assets, right? So you take your turn, you accumulate assets, you build up your space army, and then you use your assets to interact with other factions, predominantly to destroy their assets, right? To seize control of locations within the game, and to maintain control of existing locations, right? So that's pretty much the game. It is a game with no win condition, which is something that I've kind of tried to like, I've started thinking about that as well. Like, how do you, we've seen it with the High Church, right? That was an experiment to see what we could do to have a faction basically finish the game. But the only real reason that we want to do that is to keep game balance, right? If any one faction becomes so powerful that it inviolates the rest of the gameplay loop, then that needs to be fixed, right? Inversely, if there are any factions that are like looking at the cadence of the game, like how fast does the game progress? If a faction is dying, how much can they recover from that? There's a lot of questions to be asked that I think that the game was originally not designed to ask. And what I'm trying to do is both clear those up and create additional vectors for gameplay, right? So building up other stuff, exploring other opportunities to influence the universe, right? Influence our map. So for now, trying to do that, I've basically got two kind of functional objects: goals and influence. Goals we've been using kind of in a limited way for a while, and I don't know that those are going to change much more except to maybe become more codified, right? I might need to start a new doc for each thing. I might need to split them into two and work on them separately, because when I came into this rules expansion plan, I really only had kind of a vague idea of what I wanted to do, and it ended up, I think, that we're in this position where we have two separate sub things that I need to now work on. Well, and that's the thing, Fradley. Like, so Fradley Box in chat suggested maybe name them something else so they don't conflict with the goals that are already in the game, right? Because there is a word. What I'd like to do is either connect them or get rid of goals altogether and create a new thing that plugs into that same. Because I think, again, the goals of the game are based on, it's a reward structure based on the action of the game, right? In the same way that in Dungeons and Dragons, you are rewarded for killing monsters, and the abilities you have allow you to do your job, right? So right now, the loop is most of the goals are related to the things you can do in the game already. And then what I'm thinking about is adding something on, but that might require rewiring the goal model of the game, right? So we'll look at that when we get there. For now, though, what I'm looking at, and you know what I think let's start there. Give me a second here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create two new documents, and I'm going to split that rules expansion into goals and influence, because I do think now that they're two separate objects. So let me just do that. Give me a quick second here, and then we'll dive in and we'll do those separately. And the reason why I can't show you this is because I have a bunch of secret documents in my Far Verona folder that if you saw the name of them, it would blow your mind. All right. So we got a new folder, and we got a new document, goals, and we got a new document for influence. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at how I want to split those up, right? Okay. So let's see here. Goals. Let's copy that one over. Oops. There we go. All right. And then influence. It's this guy. I wonder if this is going to copy. Can I copy with my comments? I wonder. Yeah, there's probably some way to do that. That's all right. All right, here we go. So we have influence, we have goals. They're two separate systems. The original stuff that I've got here, right, is to just give me an idea of the overarching stuff we're trying to accomplish. So I want to be able to think about rewards for the factions. These are some obstacles that we came up for the project, and then things that we need to sort of consider. So let me take a look. Let's take a look at goals. So right now, goals are broken down into a couple of sort of subsets, right? So I'm going to make a little table, and I'll show you kind of what I'm thinking about for managing goals, and then we can look at kind of what might be accomplished. Because I guess I want it to be fairly freeform, but I might also want to constrain a certain block of things where it's like, kind of like how, in Apocalypse World, Vincent Baker describes the read a sitch or read a person moves. They say you can ask any question you want, but the GM is going to answer based on this list. So I want to come up with that list. Like, what can the goals, what can a faction or alliance goal do, and what are the requirements for accomplishing it? So let me make that table, and then we'll talk about that. So let's see here. How do I? Yeah, here we go. All right. So faction. Oops, I changed my formatting here. So we have the faction name. We would have the goal itself. I gotta change this whole table. So the faction, the goal. I would have the requirement, right? And then the reward. Action, goal, requirement, reward. And then I guess maybe like results, right? Like in the sense of like how many, like here, let me give you an example. So let's say House Eridanus wants to create or make fizzy cheese staple of Acheron Row diets, right? Okay. So they want to spread the eating of fizzy cheese. This is like a lore object. Spread the eating of fizzy cheese throughout Acheron Row. What do they need to do? They need let's say 100 influence on, I don't know how many how many planets are there in the whole game, I wonder. Right? We got these also node space stations, right? So I guess we could say like a certain number of systems or a certain number of planets. This is where we got to start thinking about these things. Okay, so like I'll just for now, I mean, this is just an example on X planets, and then roll, and then I guess let's say spend 1,000 fact creds. The reward is lore reward, right? And the results, anyone who wants to write lore about food should mention fizzy cheese. There are 46. Wait, now there are 48 planets, 46 planets. Anyway, so the idea here is that I'll be tracking this kind of goal, and then let me show you another style of goal, right? So this could be reticulum. Build a gun on the moon. Requirement is going to be a roll, right? It's going to be like a TN. Let's say this is the hardest possible goal. TN 15. TN 15 cred roll. Plus, I don't know, a base of influence on a TL5 planet. And what else would they need? Base of influence on a TL5 planet, and then I don't know, spend 100 fat creds. Reward, lore reward, right? And then maybe something like everyone, every turn, the moon gun randomly attacks someone in the hex it's in. There you go. Result, pew pew. So, you know, these are things that basically I can choose a way to and you know what, let's look at requirements. Let's talk about what like possible goals are. But this is the idea, right? Is that I have this set of things that I need to know. Oh, and I guess rewards too might be, well, you know what? Here, let's make a list for each thing. So potential requirements is sort of the thing that I'm most interested in right now. So like requirement, and then like, I guess here's kind of what I want: prereq versus roll, right? So the idea is that to be allowed to do it, you have to require certain things, and then to make your roll, you do the thing. Now, the question that's come up is this going to make lore creation more antagonistic? Is mechanical permission required to make all lore? What lore doesn't make permission? This is part of what I'm trying to work out, right? I'm trying to create clearer boundaries around who gets to write what, because there's been some uncertainty, and I think it'd be cool to be able to mechanically create those boundaries, right? And if you want to be able to write lore about something, you have to own it mechanically. And I think I want clarity more than anything, right? And we'll go there. So let's talk about this stuff. So prereq, roll, reward. So what kinds of mechanical stuff? What kind of mechanical stuff could you require, right? So planetary government of a specific location, base of influence on a specific planet. Excuse me. Okay. Let's see. Base of influence on a specific planet, planetary government of a specific planet, asset ownership, specific, asset ownership, type, asset ownership, quality, asset ownership, quantity. Right? So like, i.e. own 5 party machines. Or I guess this would be own a party machine, right? Type would be like own 5 spaceships. Quality is the other vector of this, right? Own a spaceship. So quality would be like own 5 TL5 assets. Own an asset worth 20 fat creds or more, right? So this is like the quality of a specific asset. Yeah, right. Starships, they're called. Own a starship asset. There you go. Own 5 TL 5 assets worth whatever, fat cred or more. And then quantity is things like own X total force assets. Own Y total TL4 plus assets, right? The number that you own. And then yeah, tier for quality as well, right? Like, because the assets in the game are broken down by cunning 1, cunning 2, etc. So yeah, that's a great call. So own X tier 3 or higher assets, etc. Okay. Cool. So that's that. Now I'm not going to separate it into 2 kinds of goals, like local or asset, right? Like it's just going to be based on the prerequisites. I might think about them informally that way, but the idea will be that a goal is just a thing you have to do to accomplish something. There you go. Okay. Yeah, and then so prerequisites also, what else? We've got like event prerequisites, right? Like participate in an attack action. Destroy a specific asset. I guess these don't all need to be in fucking brackets. Yeah, so that idea is like, what could I assign as a difficulty or as a task to undertake to do this thing? So it sounds like we're writing board game rules. Yeah, right? Yeah, so like destroy a number of specific assets by type, HP, whatever, right? Damage a faction, right? X amount at all. Yeah, what else? Oh, I've had lots of people ask me goals. There are certain things that are ungoalable, right? Like you can't be like create space wizardry. Like I still get to be like, that's impossible, right? Okay. Participate in an attack action, destroy a specific asset, destroy a number of specific assets, damage a faction. Let's see. Like, cause what other, I mean, I guess what other things do we do? I guess refrain from specific actions, right? No attack for 4 turns. Sound familiar? Okay. All right. Yeah, spend a certain amount of, right? Like Wealth of Worlds, right? And so basically what we're doing in a lot of these ways is these event-based ones, these are where we roll in things like the existing goals, right? Because a lot of these, we're creating a system that can replicate these goals as they stand. So I guess we should let me look at them and see what the existing ones already do. Yeah, right, like Wealth of Worlds or Capital Fleet. Where's the asset? I always this is organized such a weird way. These are the actions. Those are special cases. Let me just go. Faction goals. There we go. That's what you need to do. Okay. So like, yeah, destroy a number of force assets, destroy a number of wealth assets, destroy a number of cunning assets. Okay. These are all event ones. Take control of a planet. All right. Good. Expand influence, right? Build a certain type of asset. Yep. Okay. So these are already like goals. Blood the enemy, inflict a number amount of damage. Don't take an attack action. Destroy a rival faction, right? Difficulty equal to 1 plus. So this destroy the foe is a pretty serious one, but it's still valid, right? Inside enemy territory, right? Conditionals, right? Have a certain number of stealth assets on planetary, right? So it's like behavior ones, right? Move X assets, keep certain, I guess also like keep assets in place, right? Stay in one location for Y turns. Okay, all right. Destroy a force asset and spend fat credits. Okay, all right. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think the idea here is going to be that we will be able to merge all of the faction stuff that exists, all of the goals already, merge them into this new system. Yeah, so there won't be two separate things necessarily. Yeah. Also, hi, Blue Jay. Hello. Welcome back. Thank you. And then I guess the thing is I don't want there to be lore-based requirements. That I do not want, right? I don't want it to be like you have to be the emperor to do this goal necessarily. I want to be able to tie that to certain stuff. So it wouldn't be the emperor. It would be the planetary government of Imperial Prime. I can only work with the assets the game give me. Lore is what follows from those assets. Lore is describing what the mechanisms already put forth. So that's what's important here, is that the ability to write the lore is just specifying what the assets are already saying about the universe. And so I want this system to back that up. I want it to be able to say, you have the right to write this lore because of this thing. Yeah. Would existing tags matter? Maybe, but like the thing is they're not part of I guess they could be part of a prerequisite, but those don't change enough. You don't really have enough control over your own tags. And I also don't want people trying to change their tag all the time. But I will say this, conditionally, we could have asset. Here, check this out. So asset ownership in a specific location, right? So like you need to have psychic assassins on this planet to do this thing. Yeah, exactly. Fictional, there's no such thing, and it's weird, but in this game, fictional positioning doesn't exist. Yeah, it's mechanical positioning, mechanical action, and then the fiction is how do we explain that? Yeah. What's an example of a prerequisite that isn't PGov or an asset? I mean, ownership of, again, it's got to be related to game objects, right? This shit here. We made this list of current objects. So I guess theoretically we could say, I don't know, like, yeah, owning, like being on certain planets. It's multiple vectors running it at cross purposes, right? Where you're like, you can control what you own and you control where it is, but you can't control the details of the places that they are, or you can't change the stats of the asset. So what you got to do if you want to succeed is we have to look at things the characters can do. Like the factions have access to where their stuff is, what stuff they buy, what planets they're in control of, etc. Right? Okay, so these things are our prerequisites for being allowed to do the quest or whatever, do the goal, and then some of them require multi-stage or single-stage rolls, right? So it's like TN, I guess roll versus TN, and we've done added stat or added bonus based on fact cred spend. Right? So some of them are like roll a d10 and add your cunning, or a goal might be roll a d10 and add however much fact creds you spend up to 5. Yeah. I don't know. I guess theoretically we could make this a prereq, like XP spend. Right? Like you could spend experience to do the thing. Okay, so roll versus target number, added stat or bonus based on the fact cred spend. This is just like the faction operating on its own, doing stuff in the background. Yeah, I don't know about XP spend. I think XP needs to stay strictly a reward. We can talk about using it to spend it on other stuff later. But I don't think right now it's an issue. I don't want to dig too deep into that. Okay, so roll versus target number. Yeah, so far the target number has been hidden. It's also been let's see, sometimes static, right? Sometimes it's like you have to hit a certain number, but other times it is cumulative, right? So maybe it's like the more you get, it builds up, and then also other times it is staged. There might be, yeah. So we'll talk about cumulative goals in just a second, but other times it's like staged, where it's like if you get a 1, you'll get 1 worth of information or value or whatever, and then if you get a 10, you get 10 worth. It's that kind of like there's no specific target number, but it's staged based on how successful you are. Sometimes, right? These are all conditional. So for cumulative, some goals. Let's unbold this. Some goals contribute to a countdown clock And others are part of a quest line that involves multiple goals along the way. So basically the requirement that I'm doing is that I basically have to become a quest designer, right? No, there's a baseline amount of lore control that is just, and we'll talk about that, Caesar, when we get to influence, because influence is the baseline control that all of the factions have over various planets, and we'll talk about that when we look at that. So basically, yeah, the idea here is that I'm already doing a little bit of this, is that I am I'm doing quest design for each faction, right? I'm saying like you start your quest with this one, and when you do it, I will give you kind of a choose your own adventure. I'll be like, all right, so you have opened the secret buried alien vault on this moon. You did that goal. Now that it's done, here are 3 clues towards the next goal. You know, one is on this planet, one is on that planet. If you send surveyors to this 3rd planet, you could heard another clue. And like that to me seems like fun. I like the idea of taking faction desires, right? A faction will say to me like, I want to do this thing. Like all I really have to do is think about it's GMing, right? It's looking at the lore of the universe. It's looking at what the players want to do. And it's not actually that much more work than I'm already doing, because I'm just doing it as part of the faction orders, right? When you submit your orders, when I talk to the faction, they say, we want to do this thing. I just look at, and I'm building this system for myself. I look at what I need them to be able to do, and then I give them those requirements. And I say, okay, once you do these things, phase 1 of your quest is complete, and I'll give you phase 2. And so far it's been pretty fun, and I've been enjoying it. And so I want to build myself a system for continuing to do that. Yeah, right? Like the idea of having to send certain assets to certain places, having to make sure you can survive on like a hostile planet, like having enemies play against yourself. I might also include like you have to defeat like a guardian asset. You have 2 turns to deal 40 damage to this asset to accomplish this goal or whatever, right? Like it gives me a little bit more stuff that I can do, and give people the opportunity to sort of play around a little bit with like what they can do in the universe. So let's take a look at what you can get as a reward, right? So you get XP, obviously. You could also gain a faction tag change, right? So you could change from one faction tag to another. You could gain or a planetary tag change, right? Change a planet from one thing to another. You can gain an asset, buff an asset, recover HP, gain temporary or permanent would be a lot. Temporary advantage. Can factions have more than one tag? Yes. Yeah. Alter tech level. Basically all of this bullshit up here, right? Change of planets, any of those things, I think are valid potential objects, right? Can other factions help you with a goal? Yes, yeah. Like we talked about this a little bit. We talked about this a little bit in terms of like alliance goals, right? Like if I say, if you want to accomplish this goal, you need to spend, I don't know, 10,000 faction credits or whatever, then it would require that you work with other factions or you maybe never complete it, right? But yeah, alliances work together to complete very difficult prerequisites. Yeah. Integrating it into alliances, yeah, pretty easy. Cool. Okay. So these are all things that could theoretically be changed. We talked about those a little bit last time. Gain an asset, buff an asset, faction tag change, planetary tag change, XP. Will there ever be alliance specific assets? No. If you're sharing assets, you're one faction. Remember, the game is ultimately it's still competitive. Alliances should be you get together to accomplish something, and that's it, right? It's not like we are permanent best friends forever, because that's why there are merge rules there, right? Factions have an individual faction goal as well as different faction goals. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like the idea of like an alliance, you only get to act on one goal. That's right. Charlamander's got it. So like you can only ever, no, there's no alliance tags. Remember, alliances, and I'm going to say this, I'll say it again, I've said it before, alliances in Far Verona aren't real, right? They're not mechanically real, in the sense that there's no such thing as an alliance goal. There's 3 factions who are all working on the same goal, and then we're going to call that group an alliance, right? They're not, the idea of alliance goals is that you can all work together on the same goal. That would be impossible or very difficult to do for one faction on their own, right? So mechanically, alliances are fake. It's just you've decided that you're working on something together. Yeah. And I want them to be sometimes, and I guess I'll make a note of this somewhere. Goals. I want goals to be like semi-competitive, in that some goals can only be accomplished once or by the first faction to accomplish them. And I want goals to create a sense of competition around other aspects of the game as well, right? Race for resources, etc. Right? Yeah. I'd ask then what they could get from such goals. Revealing secrets about the universe, lore stuff, changing the universe, right? Like, if you want to change the atmosphere or biosphere of a planet, you're not going to be, even Triangulum can't do that alone. So you want to work with, and this is the thing, is you have to ask for favors, right? You have to get people to help you. So like if you're, I don't know, if you're like Eridanus and you have a planet and you want to up the population of that planet, right? You've got the faction credits for it, but you need another planet that you can get people off of. And maybe you want to work with someone else, another faction that has people on that planet, and you're going to buy their people from them, right? They're going to reduce the population of the planet they own, and they're going to increase the population of the planet you own. And in exchange, you're going to give them like 10 faction credits a turn for the next 10 turns or whatever, right? So this idea of like giving you more things to exchange, because requirements are really just a way of saying, what is currency, right? What do you need to own to be able to accomplish the thing you want to accomplish? So in this case, it's like you have to work with people who have things you don't have, right? So yeah. So we'll talk about that. I keep wanting to call you Caesar, but it's also Kaiser, Kaiser 77. So that's the other thing, right? Like, what does goal opposition look like? Is it a thing, right? What does it look like in this game? And also, why did everything go all weird font wise? Yeah, like how, you prefer Caesar? Okay, into it. So how does goal opposition work, right? Like, can factions directly oppose each other's goals, or is the opposition already built in via assets? I think it is. I think that's probably it, right? Like, I think it's that you have to use your assets. So if we want, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and say that. So factions have to oppose each other indirectly. If you don't want your enemy getting 1,000 fact creds before you do, you have to blow up their party machines, right? So it gives people reason to, exactly, right? Marketer them, take away their fact creds, reduce their influence. Like, you have to find ways to oppose them. Now here's a question. This is, I guess let me add another question section. So goals question. So, if you, yeah, and that I think that's the main question, right? I'm just trying to think of how to phrase this. Are goals public? I think no. I think maybe I think maybe no, they're not, or maybe some parts of them are, or because I don't know about sometimes, like something. Yeah, I want people to be able to react, but I also want people to be able to guess what their enemies are doing. Maybe there's a way to make the goal public, right? If it is, yeah, that's fine. If it is, whatever. But like, if not, are there ways to figure out goals? Oh my God, that's good. So here's an idea, right? So intelligence gathering, right? So like, make, like achieve a goal, right? A basic goal against a specific foe with graduated success, revealing aspects of their goal. So like, for example, if you want to seek out a goal and you get, say if you get a 5 or lower, you find out the reward. You get 5 to 10, you get the reward and the requirement. Like you maybe that's what it is. Maybe we figure like some kind of espionage action that allows you to gather intelligence about another faction. So that would be like a specific, in the same way, I would allow for custom goals every turn, right? I'd allow for custom goals every turn. And then I would also, yeah, I don't know if this is an action, right? Gain intelligence, or if it's a goal, right? Because now you have 2 actions. It used to be you choose a faction action and that's it. But now it's like you choose a faction action and then you have a goal action as well. So I don't know if this is, yeah, like it would probably be a cunning v cunning test. It would probably require something. So like, let me write out, like, basically the idea here is for goals, like goal types, right? And so the goal types that already exist are these ones, right? So like military conquest, commercial expansion, right? All the goals that are already in the game, those are goals as is. Yeah, using an action is super costly. So I think it might be it might be a goal instead. Yeah, a 0 XP goal. Yeah. So there's all those, but then there's also intelligence gathering, right? Okay, yeah. All right. So I don't really need to worry about that list right now, but that's the idea, is that I'll have some formalized ones and then we'll also have custom actions for each thing. Okay. All right. So yeah. Yeah, right. Giving up your own goals to chase someone else's. I like that. Yeah. I think it's a goal. You spend money and you spend assets and you roll. Yeah. Some assets are, now I'm not sure if I want to start fucking with assets and how they work too much, because we'll talk about that when we dig into influence a little bit. But for right now, I think, yeah, okay. So let's detail this intelligence gathering goal. So I guess I want to break down goals into pieces, because that might be something that you can, like, let's do a section on like the anatomy of a goal. Right? What makes up a goal? So there is the faction. This is kind of what I was doing before. Faction performing it, right? The prerequisites for undertaking it, right? You have to have this before we even consider it. There are goal actions, which is to say the role or like the actual undertaking. And then there are like results and rewards, right? What do you get? So I guess with intelligence gathering, you would, let's make that as an example. So intelligence gathering, the faction performing it is irrelevant, right? Anybody can do it. Prerequisites. So what would be the prerequisite for gathering intelligence on another faction? Do you need access to a base of influence? Do you think that it is... I mean, T-Rex Illy, if House Pixis goes to the vault only knows what came before. It doesn't know what's going on right now, right? So let me make a list of some prerequisites. So asset on the same planet as a BOI, I guess we could say an asset, a BOI, their homeworld, right? These are all options, right? That might be a prerequisite. An asset. We could also say a stealthed asset, right? Maybe that's a requirement. That makes intelligence gathering much more difficult. Prerequisites might also be influence on a planet, influence X or greater. Yeah, I mean, influence is cool, but it's tricky to move around. Let's keep influence off. I think probably like stealth spying kind of makes sense, but also stealth and the secretive tag are very powerful, and I'm very reticent to give them anything more than they already have, right? It's already pretty strong. So yeah, anyway, let me do this. So assets on the same planet, a stealth asset. What else might be required? I guess like base influence requirement, right? On like shared planets, something like that. I don't know, or a shared planet. Yeah, like the idea here is that I want to give, people like Prism the ability to gather intelligence and then sell it to other factions. Yeah, totally. Okay, intelligence gathering prerequisites. Can we think of any other like specific prerequisites? Yeah, right, like an asset on the same planet as an asset, their BOI homeworld. I think we want to make it relatively easy to undertake. And then, so that's the prerequisites for undertaking it. Goal action. I think it is, I don't think it's an opposed role. I don't think I think it's just maybe a because it's not an attack. How do you protect yourself from espionage? I don't think you can. I think you just have to hermit yourself away. Like, don't let anybody, you have to beat on the people spying on you. Yeah. I think so. So I think, well, they can't block a goal unless they know what it is, right? Yeah, how does the Panopticon matrix work? Because it's like a neutral role. You don't defend against it, right? Let me look at how that works. Cunning v cunning at the beginning of the turn. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's it. It's like cunning roll versus the target faction. Yeah, I think that just makes sense. That's just using the system, right? Panopt is a test. Yeah. Yeah, okay, there you go. So, and then reward, you gain, I don't think you gain any XP, but you, let's say, if you beat them, I mean, it makes cunning more powerful, but like you can't do intelligence with like force or wealth, right? I think it just makes sense that it's a cunning thing, but you don't get anything for it, right? You don't get like XP, you get knowledge, and it takes up your goal slot. So let me see. So what do you get? You would get learn. Forcing someone to divulge secrets. Yeah, maybe it's just, but the thing is, it's just going to be your best. They're going to just pick on, because the thing is, what I want to avoid is like, you just pick your best stat and then you go after, I guess maybe that's the thing. You pick your best stat, you go after targets with the worst stats. I think that makes, maybe that's fine. Depending on the asset, yeah, maybe like requires asset of that type on the planet. And I'm gonna say it's gonna have to be against a BOI or a homeworld, not a regular asset. So yeah, just same planet as a BOI. I think this is the prerequisite. Yeah. Does successful defense shield that faction from intelligence gathering the following turn? No, I don't think so. This would have to be a secret roll of the faction you will be stealing from will know. Yeah, I mean, I'll roll it in public. I'll say it's this versus this. And if you're like, say it's a 10 plus 5, right? We'll be able to figure out like, okay, 5 is their force against the force of the planet, against the force of the facet, or the asset on that planet, the faction on the planet. And then you could guess based on what your force is that you're being attacked, I guess. Does the BOI have to be on stealth? Do the bases normally? No, I don't think so. Right? I think it's just this is it. Stealth doesn't help here. Because this isn't an attack. It's just like you can flavor it however you want, but it's an intelligence gathering, a goal move. So I think this is where it's going to be so far. This might create paranoia and spying on Discord. I mean, that already happens. So it's not new. Okay, so learn a facet of the goal. I think that's what we're going to call these facets, right? So learn a facet of the goal of the targeted faction. Okay, and then do we want to have one facet at a time, or like if they survive this, or if they succeed, this is what they get. All of that information will be private, obviously, because if you do the spying, I'm not going to. Yeah, and I think you're right, Manticore Rider. It's the stat test versus the target faction requires an asset of that type. So you have a force asset on. So let me look at an example here, right? So let's look at a planet. So if I go, let's look at like I don't know, whatever. I'll pick a random planet with a bunch of stuff on it. So look at Lovelace, right? So here's Lovelace. House Triangulum, right, could theoretically use their party machine, their shipping combine, or their treachery, right? Because these are all cunning assets, I think, right? To try to find out a goal of House Eridanis, because Eridanis has a base of influence on their home planet. The Deathless could use their Monopoly or Extended Theater in the same way, right? Intel gathering would be a goal action, not a turn action. We basically would split the turn into two things. It's like your objective. Combine's wealth, but it's an example. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean, though. Like it would be the type of asset does that kind of, it uses that stat to target the target faction, which defends with the matching stat. Because I don't want it to be, it would be a roll. And then I guess we would have to figure out, here's a question, right? Like what modifiers apply to this roll, right? What advantage, disadvantage can affect it? I guess that's something that'll come up, right? Psychic Academy, etc. Can the spying faction learn more about a faction's goal than the faction itself, such as the results of their goal? Yeah, maybe. I think if it's, no, you know what? If it's a hidden result, that's what I'll say. You'll never know more about the goal than the faction that's doing it. Because if you spy on somebody, and they're like, okay, what is the result of their goal? What do they get? I might say it's a mystery, because I want mysterious goals, or mysterious rewards as well, right? I want rewards for goals that are like, you don't know what it is. Yeah. I don't want espionage to involve a chance to sabotage the goal. You have to sabotage it by going after the prerequisites, right? Make them so they can't do the requisite anymore. Or like take away their money or take away the asset they're using. Like if a group goes to a planet with some surveyors and starts surveying that planet, and you're like, no, I don't want you to discover anything. You have to go murder the surveyors, right? You gotta go kill them. Yeah. How will spying work for the super asset that discovers stealth assets Panopticon Matrix? It doesn't apply to this. That's The Panopticon Matrix is on a different level of the game right now, anyway. Okay, so this is a good example of a goal, I think. Let's look at like another one. So let's say like cultural reform. So what's going to end up happening is that goals, like a lot of people have done goals right now and they've been very simple, and I appreciate your playtesting and thank you for that. Goals are going to become probably harder to accomplish, or at least more granular to accomplish than they were before. If you have succeeded at one of the current version of the goals, like a simple version of the goal, congratulations, you got in before things got more difficult, but probably there'll be bigger requisites. So if you see me putting granularity on something that you've already succeeded at, don't worry, I'm not going to take away anything you already have, but this is the idea to make it more interesting. So let's say cultural reform, right? So the reward of cultural reform is change the tag of a planet so long as that tag describes the cultural practices of the people that live there, right? So you could change, let's see, sectors without number. Let's go take a look. So like if, for example, let's see here. Let's say you're trying to change. Yeah, here we go. Hyra. So Hyra could change colonized population, right? Hyra could change hatred, and they could change police state, right? All three of those are cultural tags, right? Cultural style tags. You couldn't. No, Siri, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my friends on chat. It's okay. Relax. You could go like, you could change Trillia away from a pleasure world. You could maybe change altered humanity, but you couldn't change flying cities with this kind of goal, right? So this would be a cultural reform. Your reward is you get to change a cultural tag on a planet. Can I change someone else's tag? Well, we'll get there, right? So that's the reward. The goal action, I think with cultural reform, it's probably not a single action, right? It's probably hit all the requirements and maintain for one full turn, right? So you got to go from the beginning of your turn to the end of your turn to the end of your next turn or whatever. It's got to last a full turn, and then you do the thing. So, and then the prerequisites, and there's math here that I'm not ready to do, but the prerequisites would be base of influence on the planet, the target planet, influence of at least X on the target planet, right? X or greater. I guess I could do that way. X. Okay. I guess this should technically be an underlined X, but yeah, right. Whatever. Okay. Any other prerequisites for cultural reform? Like you just have to hit it, maintain it, and then stick there. Maybe like an appropriate asset. Yeah. Right. So if you intelligence gather, you could learn that Crux is attempting cultural reform. Oh, I suppose one of the facets is like the goal. Yeah, the goal itself, right? The reward or the goal. So yeah, you could find out that that House Crux is attempting to change the tag of the planet, right? They're attempting to change one of the tags of Hyra. You could find that they need to have a base of influence, a certain amount of influence on that planet, an appropriate asset to the task, right? And then hit all the requirements for a turn.